The day after Damascus was taken over by rebel forces, an uneasy calm prevails there. People feel that brighter days lie ahead of them, but clearly Syria's future is work in progress. The HTS-led militia is trying to consolidate its positions in parts of Syria where they still need to win the trust of the people. But people in Damascus, for the moment, they are looking forward to brighter days ahead. Let's look at this report. The new Syrian flag, with 3 stars instead of 2, being hoisted at the Syrian embassy in Moscow. Ironically, it is somewhere in Russia that the ousted leader Assad has received asylum. Syrians gathered in the streets of Damascus on Monday, a day after rebels had seized the capital. They showed a sense of liberation after 13 years of civil war and 54 years of a single family rule.
Thank God we came back. People returned to their homes, those who saw their families after 13 years of not seeing them. And those who returned to their homes, we smell the incense of Damascus that we were deprived of.
Drone footage of the Umayyad Mosque after former President Assad had fled the capital. Assad's fall was surprisingly fast. The lightning advance of militia spearheaded by Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, a former Al-Qaeda affiliate, brought about one of the biggest turning points in West Asian history. A former Syrian army official now on the other side puts things into perspective.
Today, after 13 years of revolution, thank God, Syria is liberated and free of the tyrant. People of Syria experience joy they deserve after all these sacrifices and all this destruction. The Syrian people deserve to live with freedom and dignity that it paid its price with blood and sacrifices.
Damascus residents confess that they lived in fear over the last 55 years. Here's 54-year-old Yasser al-Amar.
My father was in the army. He used to scare us by telling us that the walls have ears. We would not come and tell us about what was happening or what the crime regime was doing Hama or elsewhere. He would say the walls have ears, and we did not understand him then. But if they had heard him, he would have been executed.
As people go about their business, coming to terms with the new reality, the world watches developments. With Assad's fall, a key stronghold of Iranian and Russian influence in the region seems to have disappeared. Turkey, which has long opposed Assad, gains strength. Israel sees this as a result of its actions against Assad's Iranian-backed allies and has taken up positions near the Druze village of Majd al-Shams in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Bureau Report, DD India. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov confirmed that the removed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was given asylum in Russia, saying that the decision was made personally by President Vladimir Putin. Russia's RT correspondent Mariana Kosareva has sent us this report.
Things are developing fast in Syria, with the country's former president now in Moscow with his family members after being granted asylum based on humanitarian grounds. And it comes, of course, after Bashar al-Assad stepped down and handed over power to the armed opposition there following a surprise offensive from the opposition-held town of Idlib in the north of the country. Now, jihadists have also, other militant groups as well, have seized various parts of the country, including Aleppo, Hama, Homs, also towns on the border with Lebanon. We've heard since then that the Israeli military has been instructed to establish complete control over the buffer zone on the Syrian border in the Golan Heights. As well, we're seeing that other opposition groups are taking parts of the country. The West, of course, has welcomed the overthrow in the country. We had the UN Secretary General saying that now the fate fate of Syria is in the hands of the Syrian people, but it will be interesting to observe whether these jihadists will be able to unite the country and be able to unite all these competing factions and bring them under control.
Well, leaders across the globe have reacted to the swift change of guard in Syria, each pledging to work with the new government to determine a path of peace and progress. But a lot lies beneath the surface, unfinished business in a sense. Now the US wants Assad prosecuted. The Russians want to secure their bases. And Israel, as we said, has occupied positions left vacant by Syrian forces in the Golan Heights.
Fall of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime prompted a flurry of international reactions from leaders around the globe. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the world was surprised by the speed of Bashar al-Assad's fall from power.
I think the entire international community was surprised to see that the opposition forces moved as quickly as they did. The speed at which that unfolded was surprising, I think, to most everybody in the international community.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the ousting of Bashar al-Assad as an historic day.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression.
The Kremlin said Syria was subject to extreme instability and it was too early to speak about the future of Russian bases in the country. For Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, Syria has entered a new era.
Bundan sonraki süreçte
we want to see a new Syria that will have good relations with its neighbors and add peace and stability to its region. We are ready to provide the necessary support for this.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer welcomed the overthrow of Assad, adding it was important to find a political way forward.
We're talking to regional allies. It's very important now that there's a political settlement, a political way forward, and it's very, very important that we emphasise that civilians and minorities must be protected in this process, but very, very pleased that Assad has fallen.
India called for a peace and inclusive Syrian-led political process to bring stability to that country. In a statement, India's Minister of External Affairs stated that we underline the need for all parties to work towards preserving the unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity of Syria. We advocate a peaceful and inclusive Syrian-led political process respecting the interests and aspirations of all sections of Syrian society. China urged for a political solutions to be found in Syria as soon as possible to restore stability and order.
China is closely following developments of the situation in Syria and hopes that all relevant parties will act in the fundamental interest of the Syrian people and find a political solution to restore stability in Syria as soon as possible. The future and destiny of Syria should be decided by the Syrian people.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres hailed the end of Syria's dictatorial regime and urged the country to rebuild. While voicing concern, UN Human Rights Chief said any political transition in Syria must include accountability for those behind crimes committed under Assad's rule.
Any political transition must ensure accountability for perpetrators of serious violations and guarantee that those responsible are held to account. It is imperative that all evidence be collected and preserved meticulously for future use. Reform of the security apparatus will be key. This transition must also ensure that the tragedy of missing people is addressed.
European Union on Monday said it was not in contact with Islamist group HTS, which spearheaded the ouster of Bashar al-Assad, and will assess the group's word and actions when deciding whether to lift sanctions. Dheeraj Das reports for